I see the born of no return. Sister, hey now, can't you see we're rushing for the end? I see the point of no return. Oh, now see the point of no return. It's just
Well, good evening, everybody. It's well into December. It is December 30th, 2014. I guess this will be my last broadcast for 2014, so I guess I'll see y'all next year. And yes, I did miss last week's broadcast. To be honest with you, I almost missed this one. I had a minor emergency at a client site on my day job that called me out, I guess about 7 o'clock yesterday evening, and I came dragging in well after 1 a.m., still all wired up, from the adrenaline rush of having, a major fire to put out. That's the way it is when you do, the kind of work I do in my day job. I'm kind of an IT guy, and I liken it to being a fireman. A lot of the time you just sit around, playing poker, trying to amuse yourself, and then all of a sudden there's a fire and the alarms go off, and man, you got to spring into action and all of a sudden become a superhero. Well, last night I was a superhero until about 1 a.m. Couldn't even come down off the adrenaline until about 4, 5, 6 a.m. I don't know what time I don't even know if I got any sleep last night. So yeah, if I sound a little bedraggled tonight, I have a good excuse, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But yeah, I hope y'all had a good Christmas. We had the Christmas holidays here in the United States, as I guess most Christian nations observed. I think our family had a very pleasant Christmas holiday. I hope it went well for you, and I guess a lot of folks will be celebrating New Year's here a couple days. I think the way my wife and I will celebrate New Year's is, we'll probably give each other a kiss goodnight at about 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and we'll go to bed early. And, those of you who are out there being wild and crazy, acting like you're still teenagers, good luck to you. Hope you make it home intact. And, of course, if you live in New York with the police on a slowdown, maybe you can go out and be drunk and disorderly and not get arrested. We'll just have to see. But I guess I should make my usual announcements. My name is Gary Hendershot. You're listening to the Tuesday edition of Wide Awake News on the Rense Radio Network. We're typically pretty good about being here every Tuesday. Like I say, I did miss last week, but, things happen. Sometimes things come up we cannot avoid. Now, on to the news. You live out on the West Coast? Well, you've been whining and crying about droughts and, terrible conditions, and now you get hit with this one. A storm and cold air forecast to develop at the end of 2014 and linger into the start of 2015 will deliver snow, rain, and frost over portions of California. And as you can see, the snowfall is expected to extend all the way into Arizona and parts of New Mexico. And we're, snow just north of Phoenix, it looks like. Flagstaff will be smacked with some snow. These are areas of the Southwest that, snowfall is not unknown, but it's kind of unusual. Unfortunately, it does not appear that this, one-shot burst is really going to relieve any of the drought conditions that part of the country have been suffering for last couple years. However, kids will, I'm sure, enjoy it. In some parts of, in that part of the country, it's not like up in the northern tier. I know any of you who are listening from Rochester, New York, are laughing at this. You had 10 feet of snow just a month ago. These guys are going to get a light sprinkling from your perspective, but I bet you they have to close the schools and people will be running into each other because they're not used to it. It'll be kind of a novelty in that part of the country. Now, of course, where I am in Northern Virginia, just south of Washington D.C., we're not expected to see this cold front until later in the week or first part of next week, and chances are all it'll do to us is give us a blast of really, really, really cold air. That's what they're predicting for my part of the country. But for those of you who are in the Southwest, unaccustomed to this type of weather, sorry, but you're just going to have to batten down the hatches and live with it because it's part of that global warming thing that we've all been told about. It's all your fault. You've been putting too much carbon in the air, and that's why you're getting all this cold weather. Global warming is causing cold weather. Yeah. Some news came out of Fukushima land. This was reported by the Christian Science Monitor. Now, Christian Science Monitor is typically considered mainstream. They're a little bit right of center, but their reporting is usually pretty reliable. Although, to be honest with you, this rings of sort of a propaganda pitch. You're going to have to read the article over at Christian Science Monitor yourself, make up your own damn mind. But what they're reporting is that Fukushima radiation on the west coast of the U.S., we will likely see the peak sometime around the end of 2015. At its peak, levels of radioactivity from cesium-137 will still fall below levels that the U.S. Canadian governments deem unsafe. Now, something you have to remember here is that there is no safe level of exposure to radiation. Even very low levels of radioactivity exposed over a long period of time can have deleterious effects on human beings. The other thing you have to remember is that for some reason, probably politics, right after Fukushima, the government increased the acceptable level of radiation exposure. So that, unless you're standing right next to a plutonium factory, it would be pretty hard for you to exceed what is now described as acceptable exposure to radiation. The other thing you have to keep in mind is that the only radioactive isotope that this article in Christian Science Monitor is talking about is cesium-137. Now, the cesium twins, you got one of them that hangs around for about 30 to 100 years. You got another one that hangs around for 100 to 400 years. So these are relatively short-lived isotopes. Some of the radioactive particulates that are being ejected by Fukushima, things like strontium-90 and plutonium and even the uranium that's coming off. Some of those isotopes remain highly radioactive for as long as 20,000 years. So, I look at this article from Christian Science Monitor and I say, okay, well, at least they said the names Fukushima and radioactivity in the same article. But seems to me they're kind of putting a candy coating on it. Like I say, The link's going to be in the about this video right below if you're watching on YouTube or from smartscarecrow.com. You can find the link to the article, read it yourself, and as always, you're just going to have to make up your own damn mind. Personally, I think they're trying to put a happy face on probably the worst environmental disaster human beings have seen ever. Cyber security. Now, to most of us, cybersecurity means we don't want anybody getting our online banking account information. We would really prefer that nobody be able to send an email using our credentials. We would like to be able to trust our computers, our internet connections, to conduct normal business. If you want to buy something from Amazon.com, you would hope that you would be able to click on the item you want to buy, give them your credit card number, get delivery of your product, and not have your credit card zapped by nefarious characters all over the world. That, to most of us, is cyber security. Now, to the powers that be, cybersecurity is control. We want to control everything, and we want to know what you're doing on the internet. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to know what websites you're visiting. We want to know if you are a person of interest, somebody that we should be keeping an eye on. So we got this organization here in the United States called the NSA, and frankly, we got a whole alphabet soup of these three-letter outfits. We got CIAs and NIs, NSAs and DIAs. We got so many intelligence agencies that quite often they're busy spying on each other. And frankly, we like it that way. We would much rather they be jealous of each other and be looking over their shoulders, making sure that, the other spy agency isn't. That way, they're too busy. They'll just leave us the hell alone. But in recent years, with this so-called Patriot Act that came into effect in the period of paranoia following 9/11, these agencies have become somewhat more cooperative, even though they're still very jealous of each other's turf. And now they seem to be focused on us. They have determined that average American citizens are somehow criminals that just have not yet been caught. So they figure if they can keep an eye on everything you do on the internet and figure out just who you're associating with, who you're communicating with, what stuff you're reading, what is driving your opinion and decision-making processes, they can use that information to maintain their position of control. Now, in recent years, Congress has tried a number of times to pass all sorts of nasty laws like this SOPA thing and CISPA. You've heard about them. I've talked about them here. And they all come down, we're either protecting the children from online pornography, or we're protecting the intellectual property of publishers, keeping you evil American citizens from watching the latest video without paying for it, or listening to an MP3 that you did not pay to hear, or something of that nature. There's always these really, really, really good sounding arguments that they put in front of you to make you think that these laws are going to be there to protect you. When in fact, once you actually dig a little deeper and take a look at what they're looking, they are after the ability to mold your opinion. They would prefer that messages such as what I'm putting out, messages like you hear on Rents Radio all the time, messages that you hear on other independent media sources, messages that might be in conflict with the status quo. They want to make sure those messages never get heard. And if they do get heard, They want to make sure that they're marginalized. And they want you to think that whoever's spouting all this nonsense is, a tinfoil hat-wearing kook out in the middle of nowhere, That these people, have absolutely no credibility. When in fact, much of the real news that you're going to hear is only available from independent media. If all you ever watch is the, NBCs and CNNs and those guys, you're basically hearing the government propaganda side of every argument. Now come to this thing at Sony. Lots been made of it. Oh, it was them evil North Korean terrorists, and to protect your online banking account from them evil North Korean terrorists, we need to pass these draconian laws, even crazier than the TSA, where we get to stick our hands down your pants every time you visit a website. This is the type of thing they want, okay? And they want to make North Korea out to be a bad guy because, you just have no idea how evil them North Koreans are. They've targeted your personal banking information with all 3 of their computers using their 2 tin cups and a string internet connection, and they're out to get you. They're going to get your banking information unless you give more of your liberties to us. Give to us. We'll protect you. We'll keep you safe from them evil North Koreans. That's what they're spouting. They're trying to make another boogeyman. They're waving a boogeyman in front of you. And what was it all about? Well, Sony released a movie. A movie called The Interview. Supposedly, involved something about, I don't know. I haven't seen the movie, and frankly, I have no intention of watching it. I understand it's a real stinker. But it basically follows the line of a comedic presentation I saw that was kind of a cartoon. Something about, Team America, World Police. It's kind of along that lines. And, the guys in Korea have seen this thing, and they thought it was hilarious. Look, I'm a star. I'm on TV in America. Hey, I am a somebody. Look at this, So, to most people, the whole thing was a joke, and it appeared that Sony, trying to sell this stinker of a movie, might have made the whole damn thing up as kind of a publicity stunt, just to get you interested enough to go spend your hard-earned money to see a movie that all indications are sucks. But, they wouldn't do such. Yes, they would, okay? This was common. They used to do this all the time back in the old days. That's some publicity stunt. They're just trying to get you to go watch a movie, we used to be game to it many, many years ago. Well, people have become a little naive, I think, at this point. Frankly, I think the whole thing was a publicity stunt. But in a worst case situation, think about it. The government is telling us that those evil North Koreans managed to suck 100 terabytes. 100 terabytes. 100 terabytes. Do you have any idea? A terabyte will fit on a common hard drive that fits in a workstation nowadays. That's, it's a package, it's about like that. Trying to suck a terabyte across the internet at even high-speed internet speeds, kind of like, I've got a pretty high-speed internet here. I've got 50 megabits up, 50 megabits down. Let's say Sony has something similar. Let's say, I could really suck 50 megabits over the internet. If I was a hacker in North Korea, it would probably take me a couple of years. If I had that entire bandwidth all to myself, that connection between me and Sony was so good that I had all that bandwidth all to myself, I might be able to get 100 terabytes off of their system in a couple of years. To grab that volume of data, it had to be an inside job. Somebody had to be physically located at Sony's computers and had to be plugging in hard drive after. They had to walk in there with a suitcase full of hard drives to get out of there with 100 terabytes of data in anything approaching a reasonable period of time. So, the whole story that this is all North Korea spy, they're coming after your bank account, this is just another blind getting you all scared so that you'll be willing to sign over your liberties to those who say they can protect you. Well, NSA has been recording everything that goes across the internet for quite some time now. And they didn't manage to stop this Sony hack, did they? So what makes you think even more is going to be better? Gee, if I timed that right, I should be hearing the music. Okay. I guess my timing was off. Apparently my timing wasn't that bad off. There it is. I'm hearing the music in the background. I'm going to have to slide out of here while the studio sells some goods, and you betcha I'll be back to do some more barking at the moon right after we're finished. Alrighty, and we're back from that blatantly commercial interruption to the evening's festivities. Well, it seems that the FBI has indeed been briefed on an alternative theory to the cyber hacking at Sony, and there is an independent cyber intelligence company called Norse that's done their own investigation, and their investigation indicates that there is no evidence to implicate North Korea other than some musings of executives at Sony who would like it to be all about their stinker of a film, which I think is really called The Interview. But if you do waste your money to watch this film, I think you will find significant similarities between The Interview and this cartoon that was done with puppets called Team America, World Police. Yeah. In other news, you aren't going to the theaters anymore. You're not watching the movies that are being produced by all the majors. It is a terrible, terrible thing. They produce these, multi-million-dollar blockbusters that they pay 30, 40, 50, sometimes $100 million to produce, and the gross revenues are falling below expectations, and it's all your fault. You're pirating these videos off the internet. That's what it is. We need a cybersecurity law to get you guys back into the theaters. It's got to be like Obamacare, where you're required to buy movie tickets whether you want them or not. That's what we got to do. Poor studios are not. If the studios would hire some writers, produce some original content, relearn how to actually tell a compelling story with characters that people can identify with, people might go out to the theaters. They might buy a DVD. But, if all the studios are going to offer us is crap with a capital K, it's no wonder they're losing money. They get stuck in a rut. They figure, oh, well, this was a big blockbuster a couple of years ago. Let's do a sequel, but this time we'll hire some cheaper actors and we'll take an old storyline that they did in the Bonanza TV show back in the 50s and we'll spruce it up a little bit. That way we can save money on writers, and we'll jam it down their throats. Because those Americans, they're such suckers. They'll actually believe that Obamacare is good for them. Yeah, that's what we'll do. And then they wonder why it flopped. They wonder why you didn't spend $20 for a seat and a box of popcorn to watch their crappy movies. Now, I will admit that, I enjoy a good film. I think I can count on one hand and have a few fingers left over how many really good films I saw during 2014. I subscribe to Netflix, and I find myself, I'll watch about 5-10 minutes of something, and this is crap. Tune it out. I would really like to be entertained from time to time. I don't expect much from a movie studio. I really don't. I just want to be entertained. They're not even doing that. It's like so many big industries. When an industry is small, it's got energy, it's got a lot of go-go. They've got young people with young ideas, and they're going to rock and roll and shake up the world. And then once they get established, all of a sudden the company starts being run by bean counters, these Harvard MBA types who, we can take a pile of poo and paint it gold and sell it to them as a pet rock. All we got to do is advertise it right. Yeah, that's the ticket. They get that mentality. They think you are so stupid that they can take anything, package it properly, and market it properly, and you are such a sucker that you'll buy it. So all the motivation to produce a high-quality product at a reasonable price is gone. And who do I blame for that? Personally, I blame the Harvard MBAs who are running the big businesses nowadays. I've seen it in the automobile industry. Before the automobile industry, I saw it in the railroads. And now, what do we got? We got the insurance companies whining and crying because you won't buy their overpriced health insurance, so they get their buddies in Congress to pass a law that jams it down your throat whether you like it or not. Now here comes the movie studios. Oh, they're not buying our movies. Would you please pass a law that makes it mandatory that they buy our movies whether they like them or not, please? And if they pass enough money around Washington, chances are you'll see a Hollywood care. Yeah. We got Obamacare, now we need Hollywood care. You, Mr. American citizen, you need to be required to pay for at least, let's one movie a month. It's only going to cost you, about $20? No, just another $20 a month. No big deal, right? Yeah. That's life in America in the early 21st century. Yet another Asian airliner is down. This is a flight from Air Asia. It was found off the coast of Indonesia. Just today, a pilot flying a C-130 Hercules aircraft taking part in the search operation said he spotted 7 or 8 bodies in the water. At least this time they are finding bodies and wreckage. That Malaysian airliner that went down in the same part of the world, just off the coast of Australia, apparently. I don't think they ever even found any bodies or wreckage of that one, which leads a lot of people to think that airplane was spirited away to Diego Garcia or something. I've heard numerous rumors on that one. It's a sad incident. About 130 people are dead. Apparently they've managed to recover about 40 bodies. When an airliner crashes into the ocean like that, the chances of recovering all the dead are pretty slim. News on this one is still developing. A lot of the news is just breaking on this story today. I think as you keep an eye on the news, you'll probably hear more about it as the story develops. Right now, there's no clue as to what brought the airplane down. There was some inclement weather. Apparently, the pilot was asking for permission to increase his altitude above the weather, but there was another plane that was in the general vicinity, so he was delayed in getting permission to increase his altitude. And shortly after that, they went off the radar. Whether it was brought down by inclement weather or other conditions, we really don't know. The one interesting thing that has come out is that apparently there was an American missile destroyer that was in the general vicinity, and they put their hand up real quick and said, hey, we're happy to, get involved in the search for the bodies in the wreckage. There is no definitive answer as to why this boat was in that area, but it was. I'm hearing the music in the background, so I'm going to have to slip out of here for a few moments. I will be back right after these important commercial messages to do some more barking at the moon. And we're back from our last commercial interruption for the evening. This one, I always, every week, I look for whatever little ditty I can find on one of my favorite topics, Obamacare. And you all know that I just love Obamacare. I sleep so good at night knowing I'm covered by that free healthcare system that our imposter-in-chief bestowed upon us. And the latest news in Obamacare land should warm the cockles of your heart. During this last open enrollment, the government put a real happy face on the numbers, saying that 1.8 million signed up. So we now have a total of 3.5 million people signed up for Obamacare. 3.5 million. The population of the United States is roughly, 320 million that we know about. There may indeed be another, 20, 30, 40, some say 50 million that are here without documentation, shall we say. I won't say that they're, criminal border jumpers, but, they're skulking around in the background. But, with 3.5 million signed up for Obamacare against a population of roughly 320 million, I'm not sure what the Obama administration has to brag about. But just today, it was reported by the Washington Examiner that of the 3.5 million who are indeed signed up for Obamacare, 87% required some form of subsidy. So it seems the only people, by and large, that are signing up for Obamacare are those who are on some sort of federal assistance to lower the cost. So, the orders are out, If you middle-class people don't get your butts in there and get signed up for some Obamacare and pay the retail price so we can afford the subsidies for the 87% that are signed up so far, there will be somebody knocking at your door. Now, the first guy who knocks at your door, he's going to be a little Poindexter-looking guy wearing glasses and have a pocket pen protector. But if you don't sign up for him, we got this guy named Guido. And if Guido don't convince you, we got another guy called Louis the Leg Breaker. So get in there and get signed up for that Obamacare and pay retail, damn it. That is your public service announcement of the evening for Obamacare. And I'm hoping at this point you understand why I just love Obamacare. I sleep so well at night knowing I'm covered. Yeah. More on the Obaminator. Just last year, our lame duck president, just last year, the Obama administration proposed and or imposed over 1,200 new regulations, 75,000 pages of regulatory documentation has come down. Some say that all these new regulations, which in theory apply to businesses, but you understand, I mean, if you're halfway intelligent, if you have an IQ at least exceeding your shoe size, you understand that when the government imposes a regulatory expense on a business, say an automaker, they say, okay, Mr. Automaker, you must put a backup camera in your automobile starting in 2015. Now, I, as a consumer, may like a backup camera, and I may choose to buy an automobile that has one. If I think the backup camera is annoying or I am unable to afford it, I may decide that, gee, I'd love to have the backup camera, but you know what? It's just more than I can afford. I think I'll buy the slightly less expensive model that's within my price range. The decision is left to me. But if you're a government, you say, oh, well, we know better than you, Mr. Consumer. You really, really, really need that backup camera. So we're going to pass a regulation that says the automaker must put it in the car, whether you want it or can afford it or not. So when the government jams these regulations down the throats of businesses, if you really think that cost has no impact on you, they impose that on the automobile industry, that has nothing to do with me. Next time you go in to buy an automobile, all of a sudden you no longer have that choice. Somebody who thinks they know better than you how you should be spending your money has made that decision for you. Maybe instead of that backup camera, you wanted a wild weekend at the casino. That should be your choice, not somebody in Washington, D.C. But the Obama administration just last year added $200 billion worth of regulatory cost to American businesses, which will eventually, whether you like it or not, impact you and take away some of your control over how you spend your money, how you decide how you want to spend your money. Now, I often say on these broadcasts that, one of the most powerful mechanisms you have, much more powerful than going to the polls and voting at the polls, is voting with your dollar. That vote is very quickly being taken away from you. Your decision, your right to decide how you will or will not spend your money. One of the last truly powerful tools, weapons, whatever you have in your arsenal to express your opinion, to let your opinion be known. No, I'm not going to buy that. It's overpriced. Quality is not appropriate. No, I'm not going to buy it. You no longer will have the right to say no. You thought my analogy with the movie studios was crazy. I bet you a lot of you out there were laughing about it. It was meant to provoke that reaction. But when you think about it, so many buying decisions, so many of the times where you are left to your own devices to look at a product or a service and say, yeah, I like that. It's a good product, good service, price I can afford. Yeah, I'm going to buy that. Or, what, are you crazy? You want me to pay what for that? No way. Either bring the price down or improve the quality. Then come back and we'll talk. Your right to make those decisions is slowly but surely being taken away because somebody in Washington thinks they know better than you how you should spend your money. Now get out there and buy your Obamacare like a good American citizen, and take the wife and kids to see a show, and buy some popcorn and Coca-Cola while you're at it, because they have made contributions to your politicians, and if you don't do it on your own, they're liable to pass a law to make sure you comply. Brent Crude. How many of you out there know what Brent Crude is? You hear this Brent Crude. Well, they define that as light sweet crude. Okay, what does that mean? Well, to somebody who's in the oil industry, this makes all the sense in the world, but it's a form of crude oil that comes out of the ground, and in the form it comes out of the ground, it's a very low sulfur oil, and it doesn't have quite as much of a tar constituent, so it refines quicker and easier. It's cheaper to get it to market in marketable goods, and Brent Crude is kind of the hallmark against which other types of crude oil are measured. Brent Crude right now is selling for about $57 a barrel here in the United States, roughly half the price it was selling for middle of the year. Now, a major sector in United States industry is our oil industry. The United States was on track to become one of the largest oil exporters in the world, mainly because of this technology that a lot of people call fracking. Now, I've done articles on fracking. There are pros and cons on fracking. My point of view is that fracking is overused. It's used in geological formations where it should never be used. There are parts of the country where we could use fracking to extract oil and natural gas. It would be safe and not mess with anybody. But they got this new fancy technology, and like so many other times, they're overusing it. They're using it in areas of Pennsylvania and some areas in Texas where they're contaminating people's wells, and it's being used in parts of the country where it should not be used. Now, these people who are geologists, they're supposed to know these things. They're paid to know these things. But, everybody, they're greedy. They want to get that last drop of oil, that last cubic foot of gas out of the ground. Well, because of fracking, the United States was awash with petroleum products, and we were doing very, very well. The U.S. industry, that segment of our economy, was doing very, very well, selling this stuff all over the world. But now with the prices down, they can no longer economically pull this stuff out of the ground using these fracking technologies. But it appears that a deal has been made between the United States and many of the OPEC nations, particularly Saudi Arabia, to force the price of oil down. Many say it's being done on purpose to punish Russia for their intransigence over Ukraine. I mean, the United States bought and paid for a puppet government in Ukraine. They want what they paid for. What do you mean we can't have Korea or Crimea and the other half of Ukraine? Hey, we bought and paid for that country. We won it fair and square. I'm hearing the music. That's going to have to be it for me. I think I've done my share of barking at the moon for this week. Y'all have a good New Year's celebration. I'll see you next year. Good night, all. Oh, boy, I tell you. So how's everybody doing? Did you have a good Christmas? Who got raise your hands. Who got a lump of coal for Christmas? Yeah, we had a very nice Christmas here. We had the outlaws over. We had a hell of a feast. I tell you what, though, I don't want to see any more turkey until next year. I am sick to death of turkey. What I'd give for a cheeseburger right about now. Although I tell you, I was kind of getting hooked on the mashed potatoes and gravy. Somebody got pellets. Pellets. Oh. Zero Fossil Fuel says he doesn't want to see any more pierogies. You had pierogies. That's traditional Thanksgiving, Christmas, holiday type food for you. We had turkey on Thanksgiving, and we had turkey again for Christmas. I am so sick of turkey. What I would give for a honey glazed ham right about now. The Polish side of the family, pierogies. Yeah, I've had pierogies. Pierogies, in our household, pierogies would be an interesting deviation. Our traditional is turkey, mashed potatoes and gravy, green beans, corn, some stuffing, some cranberry sauce. Yeah. Oh, wood stove pellets. Now I understand. I was trying to think maybe he's going after the neighbor's cat with a pellet gun or something. Wood stove pellets. Yeah, now I understand. Shuba says he's a vegetarian, so you had a tofuki, huh? A tofuki instead of a turkey. Stove pellets, yummy. I try not to belittle other people's dietary ethics. I mean, people want to be a vegetarian or hardcore vegan or whatever. That's really up to them. That's their decision. Obviously, I do become a little annoyed when they preach that gospel at me and think, because this is righteous for them, that everybody ought to follow that. It's like, I don't tell everybody out there to smoke little cigars because, I find them, very relaxing and, but I don't want to be preached at by the tobacco Nazis that, you shouldn't smoke that. Well, you don't have to, I'm not jamming it down your throat. You don't have to smoke it if you don't want it. But, take your Nazi attitude on your side of the fence. The fact of the matter is, though, there are no third generation vegetarians. Think about that. Just something to think about. Not trying to scare you, but if you read the literature on it, there are no third generation vegetarians. The interesting thing, most people have some food allergies, and usually it's based on ethnicity. Some people with some racial characteristics can eat one thing and it's good. They love it. Other people with other racial characteristics, if they eat the same thing, it makes them ill. One of the things, a food additive that's very popular, it's in almost everything. You can't hardly avoid it, called, we used to always refer to it as MSG, but nowadays, it's marketed with half a zillion names because a lot of people got wise to MSG and they started trying to avoid foods that had it in it. So now they got 50 different names they can jam MSG in your food and you don't know. Some of my genetic traits and MSG don't get along. Now, an Asian person, they can gobble up food with MSG right and left, and it doesn't seem to affect people of Asian ethnicity. Doesn't seem to bother them. But, a lot of Northern European types, they get even the smallest dose of that stuff, and it just tears them up. So, most people have something in their diet that has a deleterious effect on them. And, usually you know it right away. About 5-10 minutes after you step away from the table, you start sneezing, your eyes start watering, you think, oh my gosh, what happened to me? Well, you just ate something that your particular genetics don't get along with. Yeah, there's a fellow out there named Dr. Wallach who has published this. Dead doctors don't lie. He's that guy. If you, there are some clinical studies that would indicate that human beings do need some animal protein in their diet to remain productive. That doesn't mean that if you're on a diet and you're trying to lose weight or something, you might for a year or two swear off meat or reduce the amount of meat. I think the American diet is probably way too dependent on meat and meat products. I know, we got religion on that many years ago in our household, and nowadays we're not religious about it. I mean, we do consume some animal flesh. My opinion on this is that many of the animals out there, the turkeys and the chickens and the cattle, and so the only reason that critter had a life at all is because at some point or another I find it very tasty. So all these PETA people out there, oh, you would kill that? You damn right I kill that animal. He's tasty, and the only reason he was alive in the first place was to provide me with a meal. So come on, human beings have lived by consuming at least a small portion of animal flesh for many thousands of years. And it has, we have evolved in such a way that at this point it is a dietary requirement that we consume at least small quantities of animal flesh. Now, you can argue against it until you're blue in the face, but you will not convince me that it is healthy to totally swear off meat. Besides that, I do indeed find small animals tasty. I agree, but pork is bad for you. Pork can be bad for you. Beef can be bad for you. I mean, if you eat a cow carcass that was tainted with mad cow disease, that can be bad for you. If you happen to get hold of some pork that's infected with the trichinosis parasite, that can be bad for you. A lot of the dietary prohibitions that formed around religious faiths, like the Muslims and the Jews don't consume pork, had to do with their lack of ability to preserve the animal flesh. If you got a pig carcass that's been laying around for a while and it's not carefully treated, not carefully packaged and refrigerated, it can very quickly develop parasites that you can become infected by. Is pork bad for you? Well, it depends on the pig. It depends on the pig. Opossum, good. Roadkill, yeah. If you live out in the country, whatever you hit, you get to keep. Has anybody heard that YouTube video, Joe and the Deer? Joe and the Deer. If you do a YouTube search for Joe and the Deer, and listen to this guy calling from a payphone. I guess this was back before there were cell phones, but apparently he was driving down the road, ran into a deer. Figured, what the hell, I hit it. It's my roadkill. I'm taking it home. So he picks up the deer, throws it in the backseat of the car. Well, the deer was apparently just stunned. And as the guy's driving down the road, deer woke up, bit him in the back of the neck, and started kicking on the inside of his car. Well, but hey, it's a hilarious 911 call that was a real call. And the recording is apparently available on YouTube. Joe and the Deer. Do a search on Joe and the Deer on YouTube. And if there's ever an evening where you just really need a laugh, you listen to that one, and all your troubles will just dissolve. I mean, you got no troubles at all compared to this poor guy. So, what hot items in the news did I miss, guys? you'll never give up seafood and fish. Well, I feel the same way. Although I'll tell you, I'm real concerned about. We used to eat a lot of salmon here in my house. I'm scared to death to eat the West Coast salmon now. We used to eat those Alaskan king crab legs when we could get them for a fair price, but I'm a little hesitant to buy those now. With the Fukushima stuff, I swear I think they're downplaying the hell out of this Fukushima thing. I think the pollution caused by that Fukushima disaster is a lot worse than they're letting on. And there's some of that West Coast seafood that I'm just real leery of these days. Maybe I'm just being paranoid, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. As much as I love the West Coast salmon, as much as I love those Alaskan crab legs, I think I'm going to pass, at least for the time being, until somebody can prove to me that. See, the thing about it is, you consume a fish that has been contaminated with radioactive isotopes. Okay, chances are the radioactive isotope will not be absorbed into your body unless, say you're calcium deficient, or you're magnesium deficient, or you're, suppose you have a deficiency of some mineral that this radioactive isotope mimics. Many people in the United States are deficient in potassium, magnesium, calcium. Okay, our diet leaves us deficient in those minerals. Those of us who are smart take some sort of mineral supplement to make sure that we have enough of that. But if you are deficient in those minerals and you happen to get one of these radioactive isotopes in your food that kind of looks like magnesium or kind of looks like calcium, it can be absorbed into your body and plugged into a position that would normally be inhabited by magnesium or potassium or calcium or one of these other minerals that you need. Well, now that radioactive isotope is there, it's there for the duration. And it's giving off a very low level radioactive, you are being irradiated at a very low level. A little bit of radiation the body can handle, okay? I mean, yeah, the radioactive exposure does a little bit of damage, but your body's pretty good about healing such a thing. And, if it was a short burst of exposure and then you got out of it, chances are your body would, oh my God, I'm injured. It's like I got a broken leg or a bad sunburn or something. I need to replace that damaged tissue, and your body would heal itself. But if you're constantly being bombarded over a long period of time, that's what we're concerned about when it comes to consuming food products that might be contaminated with radioactivity. And if you think the only way you might get exposed is by eating West Coast seafood, think again, because these radioactive isotopes get drawn up into the atmosphere. They fall down in the rain, they fall down in the grass, they fall down in the crops. Beware the leafy greens, not just because the Mexicans use them as a porta potty. Yes, there is no such thing as a safe level of exposure to radiation. Ideally you would get no radiation. Even the radiation that you get from the sun causes damage. In most respects, the benefits outweigh the disadvantages. You need a certain amount of exposure to the sun to help your body produce vitamin D. So you want to get a little bit of exposure to the sun. Too much exposure to the sun, particularly if you have fair complexion, you notice the damage because it hurts. Sometimes exposure to radioactivity in the environment isn't as obvious as a sunburn. You only know it 10, 15 years after you are exposed when the tumors start appearing. Zero says he's gonna walk into a supermarket with his Geiger counter. The problem is, that the most common are the alpha emitters, and I doubt very seriously if your Geiger counter will be able to pick up alpha. Alpha would probably be stopped if it was embedded in the flesh of an animal. The alpha radiation would be absorbed by the flesh in the meat you were buying. So the chances of you you would almost have to grind it up into a liquid, spread it out on a piece of litmus paper or something. It's very difficult when alpha is absorbed. The betas and the gammas are a lot easier to detect, even with fairly inexpensive equipment. What else was there in the news that I missed, guys? Well, yeah, that would be a viral video. I mean, if you walk in a hazmat suit carrying your Geiger counter, for sure you'll get a lot of hits. You'll probably also get thrown out of the place, get arrested. But you will get 1 million hits. No comment about Steve Scalise. Is he the guy who had to resign because of his tax evasion? I read that story. Another crooked politician. Is that really news? Am I thinking of the same guy, or is he another crooked politician? I mean, there's so many crooked politicians out there. It's hard to keep them straight. Oh, hell yes. I think Shubas, just asked the question if the NSA had cracked HTTPS. Come on, I mean, HTTP, that's easy. Even some of the common encryption methodologies, like the DES encryption methodology that 10, 12, 15 years ago was considered absolutely the cat's meow. Nobody can break DES. DES had backdoors built into it so that U.S. intelligence agencies could overcome it. PGP, that's cakewalk. Many of these encryption methodologies send the key with the message. For encryption to be solid, you have to send the key ahead of time. Okay, the key has to be agreed to ahead of time. And the message that you send cannot contain the decryption methodology. But in most common encryptions, the key to decoding it is included in the message you're sending. So, yeah, there is no commercial encryption methodology available in the marketplace today that does not have a backdoor that is readable by the Israeli Mossad, the U.S. NSA, and what used to be the Russian KGB, whatever they're calling it these days. I mean, those guys have got it cracked before it hits the market. Well, let's put it this way: if it's even the slightest threat, most encryption methodologies the NSA can crack like that. I mean, it's not even any effort. Does not require any effort. If it's one that actually makes them stop and think about it, might take them 10, 15 minutes to crack. It's got export restrictions on it. Not allowed to export out of the United States because the encryption is a pain in the ass for the three-letter boys to decrypt. This latest thing came out of, I think in Britain, they actually put it in their body of law that the British government is allowed to tap into everything you do on Skype. Okay? Now, say what you like about Skype. I mean, I have kind of a love-hate relationship going with Skype. I wish there was something else that everybody agreed was going to be the standard, because, you know, if there was indeed something else out there that everybody had agreed to use, I'd be on it in a heartbeat. You know, there's a couple also RANs out there, but the problem is, if you're doing one of these broadcasts or something, I use Skype as my back channel to talk to the studio. I use Skype to talk to my guests if and when I have a guest on. Skype is what everybody has. It is, it's pervasive. It's like the air you breathe and the water you drink. Everybody drinks the same air, drinks the same water. That's the way it is with Skype. Now, if everybody agreed that this thing over here was the way to go, that'd be great. I'd drop Skype in a heartbeat. I mean, I've got IP telephony here. I mean, I can do very high definition. I can do HD telephony with phones, but not everybody out there has a system that's compatible with mine. So, it's like everything else. You got a love-hate relationship with Skype. You love it because it works and everybody's got it. You hate it because everything you do on it's being snooped on, and Microsoft keeps jamming ads down your throat. Yeah, I'm familiar with Jitsi. Yes, I'm familiar with that one. There's a couple others out there too that are trying to steal some of Skype's thunder. Latest uncrackable is quantum encryption. So much is being made of these quantum computers and so forth, but I have yet to see any proof that a quantum computer actually exists and functions. And I hear all these stories about, the underground military facilities that have these quantum computers that do all this whiz-bang sci-fi Star Trek stuff, but I've yet to see any proof that such things really exist. I know they're being worked on, and at some point, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, that might be the way to go. I mean, back when I first entered the computer industry, everybody was saying that electronics is passé. We're going to be doing photonics in the very near future. Where everything's going to be done with fiber. There's not going to be any circuits anymore. No electronics as such, because I think somebody had just invented a photonic transistor. Some academic had come up with a switching device that would be a 1 or a 0 using a photon as the trigger. Okay, so there won't be any computers as we know them. They'll all be photonic computers. That was a big thing 30, 40 years ago. Well, I'm sure somebody is still trying to figure out how to make one work, and maybe someday. But same thing with quantum computers. I'm sure that there are academians who are demonstrating a potential there, but as far as a commercial device, no, I don't think so. Yeah, there's a lot of Skype alternatives. I wish everybody would agree to one. Skype came along, and Skype was the first one of these video conferencing programs that worked reliably as advertised. We've always had similar applications. I remember playing with something in the VoIP world that predates Skype by some years. We were playing with video conferencing, one-on-one video conferencing, back when average internet speeds were 2400 baud. Video conferencing and one-on-one video telephony has been around for a long, long time. People have been playing with it, but the high-speed internet, the ready availability of high-speed internet, where most people had a cable modem, most people had at least a DSL with some reasonable performance. And then Skype came along, and all of a sudden the video conferencing started delivering on the promises that we'd been given for many, many years. Skype was kind of the first player to hit the market. And Skype was really pretty good right up until the point where Microsoft bought it. It absolutely went to hell when Microsoft bought it. All right, guys, I'll tell you, I had a long night last night. I'm operating on about 2-3 hours of sleep at best. So I'm thinking real seriously about hitting the button and bowing out of here for tonight. What do you think? Is there anything else that's really, really important that we really need to discuss before I bag it for the evening? Going once. Come on, get it up there. If there's any hot item that we have not discussed that we need to get on the table before I shut it down for the evening, let's get it up in the chat room, or at least hold your peace until next year. Well, I tell you, Zero, the only reason I was not here last week is because something happened at one of my client sites. It was a business requirement. I do have a mortgage to pay. I do still work for a living. These broadcasts do not make me a dime. As a matter of fact, they cost me a fortune to put together. So I got to pay the rent, man. And one of my clients was having trouble last week, so I had to work, and I almost was not able to broadcast tonight because I had a similar event happen last night where I got dragged out of the house at 8 o'clock at night. And I was working until about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I probably did not get to sleep until 4 or 5 this morning. You get all pumped up on adrenaline because, you got a major problem, where you're under the gun. So, it was last week I just could not do it. I wanted to, I really did, but there was just no way. And almost had to let you down again this week. Sometimes these things come up. And, I do have to keep my customers happy. I do have to earn a living. So, as hard as I try to be here every Tuesday, every once in a while, something comes up. But in any case, I think I'm going to go ahead and bag it for the evening. I want to thank you all very much for spending your Tuesday evening listening to me rant, rave, and bark at the moon, as if anybody out there really gave a damn. But you betcha. We'll see you again next week.
Ooh, the love of the turn around. None of us are leaving here alive. Whoa, what will you say? What will you say? And what will you do? What will you do? What will you do? Oh, I'm calling out to you. Won't you turn around? Oh, I'm calling out to you. Won't you turn around? Oh, the point of no return is just ahead now.